because this one is highly interesting. The UFC broadcast pumped up big time the heavyweight ascendancy of Jon Jones as a possibility for Francis Ngannou's next fight. We've all known he was probably going to get the winner of this bout, whether it was Stipe or whether it was Francis. Anyway, he took to Twitter, ready to go, exclaiming his interest, send me the papers, show me the money, the whole 9 yards. And then UFC President Dana White got out there, BC, at the post-fight press conference and did this whole... I cannot believe we are back here again, but basically tried to argue if you wanted to take the fight, you could have taken it already because there's what we're going to pay you for it, and that's really not going to change. So let me know if you're ready to do a deal or not. And then presenting it as, if he doesn't want to take this deal, it must mean he doesn't want to fight. BC, question for you.
Or go down to 185. The Dana joke
or go to 185. Question for you, BC. Are we going to actually get Francis versus Derrick Lewis 2 because of how cheap everyone's being here?
God, I really hope not, Luke. And obviously there's two sides to the Dana versus John money debate, but this is a overnight story after the fight I wrote for CBSSports.com. Sort of my biggest takeaway is UFC is look, it's not, I want to say UFC has stumbled into the next great super fight. You don't want to say stumbled because Dana had already announced before Saturday's fight that Jon Jones was getting the winner, right? They didn't stumble into it, but because Francis's performance was so otherworldly and next level, it just doubled and tripled down on what comes next, what that actually means. Luke, so yes, they stumbled into the next great super fight, and it's not a forced Conor one coming off of a defeat. It's not if we can convince Khabib to come out of retirement. This is your sexiest, biggest potential division of heavyweight, and it's your greatest fighter of all time in Jon Jones against your most dominant champion probably ever. This is central casting, Luke. This fight has to be friggin' next. So it was disappointing as all hell to see Dana go to that area. Now, why did Dana do that publicly? Because he knows he's had very heated financial debates with Jon in the past, and he wanted to challenge Jon's manhood, in my opinion, by basically being like, are you sure Jon really wants it? Maybe you should cut to 185, hoping that will force Jon to go, oh my God, I want this. Of course I am. Let's sign today for whatever money you're going to offer. Here's the deal, Dana. This fight is a potential monster for you. Very little fights have that opportunity to truly reach into the casual fan base across sports and in pop culture. This is one of those. Ngannou has that Mike Tyson shtick all over him, right? And Jon Jones is the name that everybody knows as the greatest fighter. It sells its friggin' self. You cannot pay these guys regular money. I'm sorry. If Jon Jones says, it's about time I get paid, you can't come off and send him the same thing you would have sent him for defending his title in a rematch with Dom Reyes. This is where I back Jon in this debate. You can't do it, okay? Because here's the reality of this. If Jon goes in there and loses to Francis could double down on his potential stardom. I was talking about him having the potential to be a Rousey-Lesnar-esque draw. If he goes out there and knocks out Jon Jones, who's not 40, right? He's 33. Are you kidding me? You pay Jon Jones what it takes to get him in there. And again, if Jon Jones goes in there and wins, Luke, you now can say, here's the greatest of all time, still in his prime, 2-division champion, and oh, by the way, you know what's next? Him against Stipe. You know what's next? Him against Francis again. You know what's next after that? Him against Francis a third time. You will have what UFC has always coveted, but never quite got to. A viable, star-filled heavyweight era. Look, there is no other level of catnip that you can sell the modern audience of people who don't watch cage fighting on the regular, but might be willing to drop $80 to $100 for a big one than 2 giant heavyweights and a contrast style of a defensive, thoughtful Jon Jones against an absolute friggin' beast. So the fact that UFC is essentially leading off with does he really want, the fact that they're leading off with if we can get the right price. You know what, Luke? Fuck the right price. Okay? You know what the right price is? Fuck the right price. Put the money in Jon's pocket. Okay, I know he's had issues. I know he's been stripped of the title a million times, but UFC has personally gone out of their way to keep him going, right? Remember when they moved that card from Vegas to LA last minute? Remember when his USADA thing kind of got cleared and he was back? They have done everything to keep this star in it. you have a chance now to make a generational fight. Luke, when Joe Rogan closed that pay-per-view broadcast on Saturday and said, you know what, guys, this has the potential to be like the most important fight of all time, like the biggest fight of all time. Like, that's not freaking hyperbole. Like, think of what this actually is on paper. Is it a grudge war on the level of Conor Khabib? Okay, no, but nothing else is, right? This is the Super Bowl. This is a fight you put in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, or you put in Jerry World in Arlington, Texas, in front of 80 to 90,000 people. This is that freaking fight. If John wants 25 million or whatever it's going to take, Luke, am I crazy? You give him that. What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's like you ask yourself, wow, what would it really take for the UFC to come up off their pockets? You know, what would it really take? And you begin to, make a list of fights that are, not crazy ass ones like Conor versus Francis, like ones you could actually make in a division, right? And this one, now that you have the reality that you have, is like, if this isn't number one on the list, what is it? 2 behind Conor versus whoever the fuck? I mean, this is the fight to make. This is easily the fight to make for anyone above 170 pounds. This is the biggest one you can make at this point, I think, quite frankly, now that Stipe is lost. What is a bigger fight you could actually make between two different humans, between the light heavyweight and the heavyweight class? Obviously, now Adesanya back at middleweight, not in that conversation anymore either. And even if he was, I don't know if it'd be as big as this one. This is nuts. This is nuts. And so, that we're not even really in that part of the conversation. I realize UFC is going to, play hardball here. That's the only pitch they know, but okay, still, it just is weird that we're automatically back in this position. Let me just say something I think that needs to be said, so that not that you need to hear it. I think, BC, you understand this quite well, and I think most of our audience does too, but we did have some new ones over the weekend. It bears repeating. The argument that Jon Jones, he wants to be overpaid now, or has been traditionally paid more than he's worth, or something like that, it is fiction. It is total and complete fiction. In fact, the only acceptable position to have around Jon Jones' pay and his demands is that this is a guy who's been taking a haircut on this for 10 years. He has never been paid up to what he has pulled relative to any of his other sporting peers or combat sports peers, however you want to financially make the arrangement. It's not even close. The UFC has been getting Jon Jones at a discount, and they want to keep that discount, and he no longer wishes for that to be the case, and he's picking this particular juncture to have this fight. Understand something, people. The only debate about fighter pay, whether it's A-listers like Jon Jones or brand newcomers who are filling in for short notice contests, the only argument about fighter pay is not should it be more or whatever. It is just how you're going to fix a clearly one-sided situation. Do you want to go the Ali Act or do you not? Do you want to sue them or do you not? Do you want to have a trade association or a union or not? That's the only debate you're having now. The idea that Jon Jones is asking for too much, Jon Jones should walk in there with 10 years of pay-per-view headlining and be like, you should be glad I'm not asking for this. I'm not asking for what you owe. I'm asking for what you can do right now.
Look,
they are lucky
saying.
He doesn't do that.
We're not saying like get that. Remember when Mayweather the last few fights? I mean, he was on a level where the guarantee was getting up to like 40 or 50, and he was regularly taking home like close to 100. We're not even saying that. But Luke, this is a $2.5 million pay-per-view buy. I mean, this has potential to be a 3. I mean, this has potential to be stupid, right? I mean, even if it underperformed and did 2 million buys, like at that point, shouldn't these guys be making the big Canelo, the big Pacquiao, the big whatever money where, you know what I mean, where you're coming in guaranteed you're going to make 20 million? I don't understand how. I mean, you can still underpay the rest, Luke, and keep this as the 1% rarefied air that somebody could hope to one day get to the level of, right? Like, these guys are at that level. This is like the level of Canelo calling his own shots and getting, no matter who the opponent, that amount of money. Only this isn't a no matter who the opponent. It's Francis Ngannou, whose stock could not be any larger, and Jon has an opportunity to make this giant history. And, like, there's no way they could lose under any circumstance of how Ngannou Jones played out, Luke. It would spawn all of these other big things. Even if Jon got like Roy Jones prime level knocked out, right? Let's say like Jon got Tarverd or Glenn Johnson, right? Just straight up destroyed. He could still go back to 205. We could still bang the drum for Adesanya Jones at 205. Like, there is a lot you could do in any direction here. Let's not let this one slip away for some stupidity. And I didn't necessarily get, Luke, when Rogan, before making that comment about how big this fight could be, his knee-jerk reaction was also, oh, Derrick Lewis has got to be the fight to make next, right? And even the guys around him on the booth were like, no, bro, Jon Jones. I mean, like, what the hell are you talking about here? I mean, somebody slip a corporate pill in your coffee? Like, what's going on here? So I love me some Derrick Lewis. That rematch is going to happen, eventual title or not title, but let's stop the presses and make this fight. And since it's the time now to get people back in the arenas and the stadiums, like, this is your stadium fight, UFC. This is the one. Don't screw it up.
Yeah, and the other part here, too, is, I think you raise great points, right? I mean, the urgency of the moment, I think, really is what is at issue here. But something to keep in mind is, like, dude, I don't know how Jon Jones is going to look at heavyweight. Gustafsson went up to heavyweight and didn't look good. DC obviously is totally different, looked really good, but faded it kind of down the stretch there a little bit in terms of what he was. But that's, a complicated situation. I'm just saying, the guy, to me, lost to Dominic Reyes at 205 pounds. Jesus Christ. So to me, it's like, maybe he goes up to heavyweight and he's instantly competitive and he wins the belt. Like, that's obviously a very plausible scenario. But I'm just saying, if Jon is going to lose, you'd much rather have him lose right away to Francis than like Derrick Lewis or Curtis Blades or something else, where those are good fighters. But if you lose to Francis, you still hold on to this situation where you're like, okay, but that was a one-time thing. We can do it again. We can make some money, blah, blah, blah. It's just better for hedging. It's not one payday or one windfall for the UFC. To your point, the web of giant paychecks for everybody, if everybody plays ball, is significant here and goes on, BC, for years. For years. It's not one fight. It's an open door to a whole universe of new fights, right?
I mean, look, when you finally have 3 or 4 very marketable heavyweights and another 3-4 after that of competitive ones, like, Luke, they've never had this. Never. It would be like Couture, Mir, and nobody else, right? Or Sylvia. It'd be like JDS, Kane, and nobody else. And then when you had people, injuries fell apart. I mean, they've never had a completely active and red-hot heavyweight division, and now they have a chance to have one at the pay-per-view level. Are you kidding me? What are we missing here, Luke? What the frick are we missing here? I mean, Boo-Boo Wild Thing on line 1, Dana, okay? Make it happen, please.
The new home of Bellator MMA is on Showtime, and the first epic event goes live April 2nd. Patricio Pitbull, the winningest fighter in Bellator history, versus bitter rival Emmanuel Sanchez. In an epic rematch to advance in the Bellator Featherweight World Grand Prix. Pitbull versus Sanchez 2. Bellator MMA on Showtime, where warriors rule.